Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Sim Sundays podcast. I am joined by Mr. Random Coulside and Mr. George Morgan for our weekly news roundup before we talk to Laurence Dusoswa, one of my favorite streamers. He's got a lot of energy, that guy, and he's got an incredibly committed community, and they're putting on an incredible event, which on paper is just another event. But somehow the spirit of this event has captured the sim racing community and a ton of brands. And we're in for a bit of a treat next Saturday. This episode comes out on, Sunday the 3rd. And the race will be on Saturday the 9th of April. So just short of a week after this episode comes out, the Potaytona event will be on. And we'll be talking to Laurence Dusoswa all about that event and where that idea came from and what's the point basically of the event for about half an hour after we do our weekly roundup. But it's been a quiet week. There's not a huge amount going on in the world of sim racing. This does happen occasionally. I guess we're a small sector of the gaming world, and I think maybe we've been treated to a lot of news recently. But this week is a slow week, so we really have one big news story. Although there's not a lot of exclusives coming out here, but it's the F1 game. Obviously, the F1 game have released their trailer, and we're going to dive into 10 minutes or so of speculating. Random call sign, speculate away.
Oh boy, the biggest speculation I've seen is about the Unreal Engine 4 being part of the new titles going forward. Not sure if it's the right moving to that engine, because there's been a few games that have used it, and all of them in racing, and all of them have hit some sort of performance snag and took quite a while until they got decent or not fixed at all. For example, Unreal Engine 4 on Assetto Corsa Competizione, the beginning was not really that good. It took them like almost 2 years to get fixed. Considering that Formula 1 is an yearly title, that means if you buy it, you're a beta tester. Same for same for WRC. They keep releasing patches to fix the performance on Unreal Engine 4. Every time I go there, it's still pretty much the same. You see the shader recompiling, you get micro stutters, large stutters, and the same was with Kartcraft as well. Kartcraft also used Unreal Engine 4, and it has a much smaller size of the world, and still continues to have micro stutters and all of that stuff. So I'm not sure how they're going to pull this, because they already have the experience with the EA Sports, WRC.
There is a question that springs to my mind, which I haven't seen discussed yet online or in any of the news articles that have come out about this. And there might be a really obvious reason why no one else is asking this question, and maybe I'm just missing something. But obviously, everyone's talking about the jump from the Codemasters Ego engine to Unreal Engine 4. But why not Unreal Engine 5? Because they're going to launch a new game on an old engine, right? Or am I missing something?
Probably cost of development. Could be the case that there aren't really many games on Unreal Engine 5 anyways. So if they're trying something new, might as well just try something that was supposedly tested. But that doesn't really mean much, because we already have the experience in sim racing that it's not as straightforward. You do need a lot of optimization on that engine. I was kind of confused, because I would think they would go to Frostbite. Because Frostbite has been around. Yeah, because it's EA Sports, it's Electronic Arts. They already have it. It's a beautiful engine, and it's really not that bad in terms of performance. Well, it's not the best, but they have like a huge community that already uses it and could help them, move forward. And it's a tool that already they own. So I was expecting that they would move to Frostbite, but then again, I don't think there's any Frostbite racing games.
Well, I guess maybe that's the reason. It is
or is
interesting.
it the Unbound? Is it Frostbite, the Unbound?
Need for Speed Unbound?
The Need for Speeds are Frostbite, right? If that's the case, I still don't understand. They had like the 2015 or 2016 one.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they
launched October 22 using the Frostbite engine.
And they run pretty well. They look great. I'm not sure if it's possible for something like that, but it's something that I already have. But
strong majority of their sports
speculation.
games are actually Frostbite. UFC, NHL, Madden. Yeah, they're all Frostbite games. So yeah, who knows?
Well, it's interesting, isn't it? Because people seem to be quite excited for the F1 24 game. I think the F1 23 game was pretty well received if you compare it to 21 and 22. 23 seemed to be pretty well received, and then this is the first full release under EA's watch, and they hinted when it kind of fell under EA's watch that there was going to be a refreshed F1, and the obvious thing to refresh would be the engine. So it would make sense for it to come out on a new engine. But what does that actually mean? Like, so for our listeners who maybe aren't aware of how games are made, or that there are such things as game development engines, etc., if we were to go from the current engine of Codemasters Ego to Unreal Engine 4, what does that actually mean for the drivers?
I mean, personally, you go back to, obviously Ego has been around since 2013. Obviously, the very fabric of the game is built around its engine, and obviously with a move to Unreal, obviously it basically means stripping everything back and essentially starting from scratch. If you look at what we've had over the last since 2013, if you go into the very game files of the F1 game, you've still got the original Lotus and Force India and all that kind of stuff in the very background of the game. So what it does mean, obviously from an F1 standpoint, and I think from a player standpoint, is that we are going to get something that is very much refreshed, brand new. Obviously, the one issue you get with brand new, like Ricardo has alluded to, is that there is a very high probability of issues. But on the other hand, I think there is still potential for a greater experience too. So who knows? We'll see.
Well, they're launching it earlier than usual as well, so you've got to assume that they're pretty confident if they're because nobody was expecting them to release early. There might be some commercial pressures in the background that we can't see that means that they have to launch early.
I'm excited for career mode.
From an outsider's point of view. Okay, what have you heard about career mode?
Yeah. Well, they're trying to immerse career mode more so with the real life F1 product. So they're trying to make it so it kind of carries in. I'm also on the understanding that they're trying to work the handling model as well. So we're going to have another new handling model on top of where we were, on the previous rendition, which might I add is obviously far more, I would say, interesting from the concept that we moved from 22, which I must say the handling model there was trash. Unfortunately, I mean, I couldn't drive the car. I was so much better off in the commentary box for F1 22. It's unreal. F1 23 was a real step in the right direction. It was fantastic. I've just reignited my YouTube channel off the back of it now as well, with my own career mode series, and I'm hoping that I'm going to do the same for F1 24. But I'm hearing that there's a lot of changes coming. Career mode, they've slapped in some new features, stuff we haven't probably seen in a very long time. So I'm very hopeful that it's gonna turn a corner.
Ricardo, are you excited? You don't seem excited.
No, Formula One is a title that's generally Formula One is a title that it just goes beside me because it's a yearly release. I tend to stay away from yearly releases. Yeah, I understand, and because of it, there's a yearly release. I think they're starting to do like a 15% discount if you are either a subscriber or you bought the previous one.
If you've owned the last like 3 games, I think if you own the last 3,
something like that.
Yeah.
So okay, that part is okay.
Yeah. I agree with you,
I
Ricardo,
understand
though.
why people like it. I
do honestly. No, I agree. I agree with you that I think say for example ACC's model, they released the game back in 2018. We've had regular DLC that has kind of updated the cars, updated the liveries. We just had GT2s and we just had Red Bull Ring. I think that is a
Mhm.
really good system. And if we had that in the F1 game, then I would imagine that we'll be where ACC are now in terms of having probably the most polished GT3 game in existence.
Yeah. Mhm.
With James Baldwin hailing the handling model and the actual feel of the car as being the closest you can get to a real life experience, which for me is pretty cool.
It brings its advantages. It brings the disadvantage because the game will be 6 years, 7 years old, and it's some things that need to be updated on the background. And of course, if you want to make a move, you need to make a move always thinking that the community is not going to like that you're going to make the move. When you do it and on a yearly basis, the community is much more receptive to change.
That's interesting. Well, I'm excited for F1 because, as I always say, F1 is kind of where I started in sim racing. And it's interesting, George, talking about the single player campaign mode, because I don't think I've played a single player mode in a sim racing title in years. I just go straight to multiplayer. Like, I always skip the single player experience. So now that you've said it, that has ignited something in me. I am quite excited to see it, especially if there's a bit more depth to the campaign mode. That would be like almost like a merging of F1 Manager and the F1 game would be pretty cool.
Yeah, I think F1 Manager obviously coming out and giving what it's provided, I think has made a difference. So yeah.
Yes. Well, okay, so that's enough about F1. We have one very small topic to discuss before we move on to our Laurence Dusoswa episode, and that is Potaytona. You're racing in it?
I am racing in it.
Are you racing in it, George?
I'm not. No, I'll support Ricardo.
What?
I'll get my pom poms out. It'll be fine. Go, Ricardo.
Well, he's looking for guest commentators, so you have to jump in there.
No,
How's the training going?
I'm intrigued.
I'm
intrigued.
I've actually had a session with Swelly last week. Swelly Alameda. Yeah. So
we've had him on the show.
He told me some tips for it because I drive GTs, and going into prototypes, it's a completely different thing, especially when you jump games. And the way forward was so simple, it just made me feel stupid.
Yeah, the guy is an absolute genius. They say that the best way of learning something is to teach it, and he's been coaching people in sim racing for years and years and years. And I was enjoying watching his radical content recently at Sebring. But yeah, the guy is an incredible coach. We've had him on the podcast. It's one of the most interesting podcasts I think we've had. His journey, his story, how he's a classical pianist and also sim racing coach, and now author of probably. I think I'm fairly confident in saying the best-selling sim racing book in the world, because there aren't that many books about sim racing. So if you're interested in learning a little bit about the practical ways of getting faster, or you're interested in his journey, make sure you go back to the Sim Sundays episode with Swellio.
I can vouch for it. I can vouch for it. I took over a second off in an hour. It's so stupid.
That is very impressive.
It does sound like it's snake oil, but I was doing 34 and a halves, and then after a while, I can hit 32s, no problem. What the hell is this?
That's nuts.
Yeah, it is.
He goes into detail in the podcast about his coaching technique, and it's he doesn't say brake here, turn in here, accelerate here, apex is there. He doesn't tell you what to do. He just explains the questions to ask yourself as you're going around.
He explains the process of thinking about the car and the positioning of the car, and that is not about braking points. It's not about how much to brake. Sometimes it is, but it's more like the general concept of driving a car, a specific car in a specific track, or generally in this case a car, because it has a certain specific way to drive, and you need to understand how you do it. And then from that point onwards, you build your own lines according with what the car needs to do. Because if I drive GT3, I was doing, for example, on T1 Daytona, I was doing a specific line that is built for GT3s. And it took me literally 30 minutes to remove that from my head, because he was telling me, look, you need to brake like this long, because the car will then pick up, speed. when you do the turn, and then you need to think about this. And the fact that you need to reset yourself, this is why you pay £100 for an hour, £50 an hour per person. You know, it's not something that you can pick up from a video.
No, I mean that surely is the most valuable kind of essence for any driver is it's not about being instructed and saying, listen, you need to brake here to get this position here. Just the very nature of a driver, getting that process right means that whatever the corner, whatever the position on track or whatever it may be, tires, anything, temperatures, engines, you're prepared for every eventuality. You don't need a written sequence or a plan as to what you're going to do into every corner. It's more about how you're going to execute in the moment.
Yep.
Yeah.
So I can look at it from a very different way. He's more of a consultant as a coach.
Good consultant.
Yeah, he is excellent, and you can tell when he talks that he's just so incredibly intelligent. He's so smart. He thinks so logically about it. So yeah, well, that is enough of the plugging of the motorsport checklist. Great book. Find it at Amazon or your.
We need to speak about Potaytona then.
Potaytona, yes. So you're racing in Potaytona. Tell us about your team. Tell us about your strategy. How are you going to win this event?
So we're not, but our strategy is I'm going to buy a 12-pack of beer or something. When I stop driving my stints, I'll drink it.
Nice,
like that. I'll be driving with my friend Brad Weasel. He's a Portuguese streamer that does iRacing. He does ovals. It's like the only Portuguese guy doing ovals in streaming. He does a lot of prototype racing as well. So we're driving the LMDH. We're still not sure if the Cadillac or the BMW figured it out. And I'm also going to drive with my friend Craig, somebody that I met in Sim Racing Expo 2022. Really cool story. We were on the GSI booth, and I was talking, I think, with Gomez or something like that. And he was also in like a small group, but he flew from the United States with his mother. Oh, let's go to Germany just for the German markets or whatever. And then he sent his mom home and they went to Sim Racing Expo, right? So it was like all there alone. And I'm like, look, I know everybody. Do you want to come with me, help me out or whatever? Oh, sure, whatever. And then it's been like it's been like a friendship bringing out of Sim Racing.
Sim Racing Expo. It's where the magic happens.
It is so good.
I need to get to one. Really do.
Have you never been, George?
You never
been. We were going to go this year, but last year, but I got booked elsewhere, unfortunately. But I've been
coming this year.
I would like to, because Danny Greaser has very kindly, invited me now a couple of times, and I feel bad for not showing up because it looks like a fabulous event, and I'm really keen to come and check it out because. Honestly, it's brilliant. I think the Creator Series always have had at least a few of their members go to these events, and I'm sure, no doubt, off the back of what we saw last year. Obviously, we had a panel and stuff like that. Tom and GB and all those guys were there doing a panel talk, and I'm going to make an effort this year if I can. So,
yeah. Well, we can't also say too much, but also. The Creator Series may or may not be doing something incredible.
Wink, wink.
Yeah,
wink, wink.
We'll leave that there.
Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. So the Potaytona will be next week, and then it's basically to help out some potato kids get real life places for their racing series.
Correct. So the episode, the interview that you're about to listen to is 30 minutes of Lawrence explaining the event, why it's taken off so much, and who they're supporting. They're supporting 8 real life racing drivers. And Lawrence, there's a really interesting bit in this interview where I'm like, okay, yeah, but why? Like, why? He's talking like, why is it not giving money to cancer research or one of the many disaster zones in the world right now? Like, why are we giving money to people that are already wealthy enough to start in motorsport, but just want a bit of help to get competitive. Like, why? And then there's a really, really interesting answer from Lawrence. So that's enough from us. Thank you for listening, and enjoy our interview with Laurence Dusoswa about Potaytona, which is happening on, I keep forgetting the date. If you're listening to this on release day, it's literally this Saturday. It's the 9th of April. Thanks for listening. See you later. March. Bye. Laurence Dusoswa, welcome back. This is your third appearance on the Sim Sundays podcast. Once as a one-on-one, once on the stage at the Sim Racing Expo with Dave Cam, and now here on the eve of the iconic Potaytona event, which we will get into. How are you, sir?
Good, great to be back. Big fans of what you do, and yeah, so I love to listen to the podcast and stuff. Yeah, it's good fun. It's an honor to be here. This type of thing is needed in sim racing.
Oh, thanks, man. I always get a bit bashful when real human people that I can see say that they listen to the podcast, because I often just think that I've just sat here basically on a Zoom meeting with me and one other person, and no one else will listen. So I appreciate that. Anyway,
so it's great. It's great when when people get involved in sim racing, and at the start when you do a podcast, you're kind of like you're trying to take information from your guests, but and I kind of I do content. I put content out there, and it's great to have things like your podcast where I can actually learn some stuff that I can feed back into my content and community. So it's really doing a service for the community.
Oh, stop it! I'm making this up as I go along. But thanks. It's great to have you back, because our episodes, our last two, were a lot of fun. The Sim Racing Expo one, in particular, was a lot of fun. If you're listening and you haven't listened to that episode, look up the Sim Racing Expo, where me, Lawrence, and Dave Cam and Chris from Gridfinder play a game of 2 truths and a lie, and it was really good. I enjoyed that. But we're not here to talk about that. We're here to talk about you and your upcoming project and your vision, your passion, and your zest for life when it comes to the sim racing world. Right now, I've kind of really zhuzhed that up a bit, and it's really not hyperbole. What you're doing, and I'm waiting for the hook. Right, what you're doing, I think, is really energized all corners of the sim racing world, whether it's community racers or whether it's huge brands. Right, everybody seems to be talking about the Potaytona event. So I want to hear the story of it. I want to hear how it happened, where the idea came from, and what it's all about, and why. Let's start with the why.
So, like most things in my community, it started off as a joke. I'm heavily involved in my community. I like to hang out with them in voice chat. I like to chat with them on Discord, and it's a very vibrant community. Last year we had a crazy idea, because we were talking about how close can a sim racer really get to real motorsport, and the initial dream, at the start of, especially the start of COVID, people were talking about getting from a simulator into a real car, and that was the only channel that people spoke about. But there are so many other things that you can do, and you don't necessarily need to even drive a car. And we were thinking well, how close can we get? There were jokes about interacting with people's posts, and when they if we see a race car driver react to one of my videos or whatever, that was we're getting closer to real life racing. Then we decided, well, how cool would it be if we get our community logo, Potato Nation, on a race car, on a real race car? So we went and we did that. We found a random race car, put a sticker on it. She went and won a championship, and we raised a load of money for her. I was like, oh man, this is so cool. How can we make this scale? So we kind of pushed a little bit harder. Here we are, a year later, we sponsor 8 real life race car drivers, and we're doing an event where we're giving away, in one day, we're giving away €35,000 worth of prizes to sim racers. It's an esports event like no other. We're going to be the first big endurance event to use the iRacing weather model. So that's been attracting a lot of people. We've got companies, real companies in sim racing, putting their staff and their employees in cars to officially represent them, rather than just plastering their logo on an esports team. We decided to flip the whole thing on its head, and do a kind of an organic, from the community out type of an event. Get companies involved, get content creators that are close to the channel involved, and we managed to fill our entry list before we advertised the event. So it's gone completely crazy.
It has gone completely crazy, and it's interesting, isn't it? Because if you boil it down, you're doing an endurance race on iRacing at Daytona, which on paper doesn't feel like it's any different to any other community or any other streamer that puts on a special event. However, I think the interest that you've got from the big brands, so the hardware brands that are putting in all these prizes, seems to be kind of adding to this flywheel of momentum that the event has. But how did you pitch this to them? How did you get so many people interested in what, on the face of it, is a fairly, it looks like on paper a fairly standard event, but clearly it's not. I'm excited for it. Like, how did you pitch that?
Yeah, so the very first thing we did was to kind of stay close to our values no matter what. Whether it gathers legs or whatever, gathers momentum, stick to our values. So the main things we want to do are raise money for real life race car drivers. That was our first priority. Involve the community as much as possible, and have fun. And they are the three, I guess, golden rules that I said to companies. This is what we're doing. And if you want to be a part of it, you come and race as the community. You're a part of us. You're just racing with us. I want you officially represented. So I went to SimiCube, Cube Controls, GSI, said, let's go, let's do this. If you want, you can sponsor as well, or you can sponsor a prize. But the main thing is I want you guys actually involved, not just from a, pay a bit of money, get a logo type of way, as in you guys are the stars of the show. So I didn't approach a single esports team. They eventually kind of heard about it, or via, I know that companies have recruited esports drivers. That was always going to happen.
As much as you say it's for fun, everybody will always want to win.
Oh, totally, and that is the whole crux of it. And I think that there is a major elephant in the room that we need to be completely unapologetic about. Right? Sim racers are great at supporting good causes, mental health, cancer research, all these, charities, super amazing initiatives. I've been involved in them, and they're great. We have never done a fundraiser which is fundamentally selfish like this. And racing and sim racing, they're very selfish things. If you look at your rig and really think about the fact that, well, you could donate a couple of thousand to cancer research, or you have a rig in your house, why do you still have the rig in your house? There's a selfish element to it, and we should be unapologetic about that, because we can still use it to do good things, right? And that's kind of what we're trying to do here. This money that's being raised for real race car drivers is not a good investment. Nobody's trying to claim that this is a good investment. Those talented drivers might go on to do great things, and that's great, but there's a risk. There are way better ways to spend this money, but this is how we want to enjoy it. So it kind of fits into the core values of the event. We want to be unapologetic. We want to say whatever happens, as long as we achieve those three things, it's going to be great. So I never promised massive viewing figures. I've never promised massive participation. Didn't make any promises. I said, this is what's happening. You're welcome to be a part of it. And that's pretty much it. And companies were like, straight away jumped on it. And one of the interesting things about it is that some companies have been super generous. None of those companies knew what any other companies were giving, and they didn't even know at the time if there were going to be other companies involved. And I think this is a big thing, because I could easily go to one company, extract something out of them, but it wasn't my goal. A company said, oh, we'll give you this. It's like, great. So we just made a note, and we continued on our path to make this event. Then another company comes along. I could easily go to that other company and say, well, so-and-so is giving €4,000 worth of prizes. What are you going to give? And that's not what the event is about. The event was never about prizes. And I think that companies kind of said, it was not necessarily like a reverse psychology. I don't know what the word, because we never wanted the prizes as such. It's great to have some support and some prizes. We never wanted it to be so huge, but it's amazing that they all came in on a crazy high level. And even when in the past few weeks, I tried to make the communication as clear as possible that, look, after everybody had decided what they were giving, I gave full lists of this is what everyone's giving, this is what everyone that's involved. Some made minor adjustments and stuff, but in general, nothing changed, because what they wanted to do from day one was, I guess it wasn't oversold to them, and they invested accurately in it. But now we find ourselves in a situation where, we've almost, I think we've 30 sponsors, 35,000 euro worth of prizes. So 10,000 euro of that are for driver prizes. 25,000 euro worth of sim racing equipment is going to be given away to people watching the event. And that again is the community aspect, because the community is much more than drivers. It's much more than people who join a Discord. It's people who can get lost in a moment. Why do you go to a concert? Why is there hysteria about a Taylor Swift concert? It's not because you want to listen to her album. It's because you want to be part of the moment, part of the, the excitement and the community. You're surrounded by people who are lost in the madness. People fly from different countries to go to these things, when it's really, on the face of it, if you're not a Taylor Swift fan, it's a tremendous amount of effort for nothing. And that's exactly what we're trying to do. We're trying to indulge in the fact that that's how passionate we are about sim racing and real racing.
I love it. Absolutely love it. The prizes that you've got are absolutely spectacular. And I love the fact that you're really incentivizing being in the crowds, because that's a great place to be, right? And actually it's interesting, isn't it? Because when you go back to the why, you said, that we're sponsoring real race drivers, and then that's a selfish thing. So there's almost kind of like a conceptual merging of worlds here, where by sim racing, we're kind of in the peripheries of the real world racing world. We kind of want to be in it. We all watch it, right? We all watch motorsport. 99% of sim racers will watch motorsport, and so it's rewarding those sim racers for being just that, sim racers. Okay, we're not being motorsport. We're not drivers. But I'm curious about the relationship between the sim racing community and the real world drivers, and how that's played out when you've gone to these real world racing drivers and said, sim racers are sponsoring you. Were they ever like, why are they sponsoring us? Like, why are these sim racers giving us money so that we can go and race? Because any one of those could keep the money themselves to go and race themselves.
Totally. So if there's one thing I've learned about my community, is that they have quite a lot of money. A lot of them would feel that they don't have enough talent to drive in real life, or they don't have the time or the connections to do it. Maybe they're too late in their life to become a race car driver, but they still want to contribute in some way. And the costs are very, very high. So we've specifically chosen a lot of grassroots drivers, people who are at a very early stage of their career. And what's amazing is that initially, when all we'd offered them was a set of pedals or a gear shifter or a steering wheel or something, and we got messages back from these drivers saying, this is the first time somebody who wasn't my family or my neighbor ever sponsored my racing in any way, shape, or form. It's like it's the first time someone has really taken an interest and shown some belief and given them a reason to fight for something. And we were like completely blown away by this, because we're just idiots throwing away money as far as we're concerned. We're just trying to see what happens, because we have all the sim equipment that we need, and we just want to spend a bit of money, have a bit of fun with it. So we really kind of, I guess, exercise the fact that traditionally people think of sim racing as like, if you have a sim racing event, it's like, oh, we got such and such a real driver in, and that's going to promote the event. And we're like, well, that's not what we in our community, I'm not going to speak for all sim racers, but in our community, that doesn't do much for us. What we kind of want to flip it on our head. It's like, well, how can we do something for the real drivers, rather than them coming in And now, obviously, we're not going to go and sponsor Max Verstappen or
Not yet.
anybody.
Not yet. Let's
Well,
see where
who knows?
this goes.
Who knows? I mean, we have an LMP3 car on our roster now. We have a TCR Hyundai that we sponsor. So we've got we've got the current UK Formula Ford 1600 champion that we sponsor. So we've only got 8 drivers, but we've got a lot of trophies and talent there. So the ability to flip the way that we think about sim racing and real racing on its head is pretty insane. So much so, and this is pretty exclusive because by the time this airs, we probably won't even have announced it yet. Tony Kanaan just entered a team.
Wow, that's
so
nuts.
It's insane. David Brabham from Brabham Motorsport is coming on stream live during the event to chat esports, to chat real motorsport. Like the undertone of they're the people who already believe in kind of sim racing and esports, right? But the vote of confidence that our little silly community event, which we were only trying to raise a couple of €100, and now we're at this stage where like people are taking such an interest in it, where they are already, they're asking what, can we be involved next year? It's like, I don't even know if there's going to be a next year, Let's concentrate on this event because this needs to be our Woodstock moment where we're like, let's just do this and see what happens. If it ever happens again, great, but let's act like it's never going to happen again.
Yeah. That makes so much sense, and it definitely is in keeping with the kind of conception of this event. It was meant to just be a joke, but it's maybe because it was meant to be a joke that it has garnered so much attention, right? Maybe it's because it's lighthearted, because it's not shiny and fancy, and this is going to be a super duper esports series with the best of the best of the best of the best racing against each other for 100,000 euros worth of prizes, right? So, and let's touch on that a little bit. So you're specifically obviously not targeting esports drivers, and there will definitely be some esports drivers. The brands who are taking part in this, SimuCube will want to be in front of Fanatec, will want to be in front of Assetec, will want to be in front of. They all want to be at the front, right? They don't want to be the slow team, and so the esports drivers will get in there. But what was your reasoning for not specifically targeting esports drivers for an event such as this? Because it's a long event, right? You need people with experience.
Yeah. So I love esports, sim racing esports. I'm a huge fan of lots of our really quick drivers. I do find that for the general sim racer who's not necessarily a hardcore motorsport fan, and I'm not even a hardcore motorsport, I watch it when it's on, or when I have the time. They find it quite difficult to connect with the esports drivers. And it really doesn't matter if there is €2,000 to be won or 200,000. It doesn't influence how likely they are to watch an event of all these elite sim racers or esports drivers battling against each other again. And there are lots of different leagues, and it's difficult to relate. And much like the way we'd love to hop in an F1 car and share the grid with the real drivers, there's no chance for us to be involved in that because they don't want to race with us. And that's a big thing that we kind of built into this. Like, well, let's make something. Let's take all the little bits that are being ignored in esports, sim racing esports. Let's put them together and let's see if the various aspects of it capture the attention. Where esports drivers will say, "Hey, hang on a second, guys. Why wasn't I told about this? I want to be involved in this," and not necessarily only be attracted to the money, because the money is great. We never really planned to that, but we wanted them to be interested in, I guess, just the taking part aspect of it. And we've certainly achieved that. We've got some, other real life driver interests like Alex Dunn from F3, Louis Sharp, one of his main rivals, is over in New Zealand, but he's on a team as well. And I don't even know if they both know that, if they know that the other person is there. So it's wild how it's wild the dynamic that it's created. And yeah, it was just really to I guess explore what is interesting, what are people interested in. Should an esports event with all these massive esports teams, should it have a wild card team? Would a wild card team capture the underdogs, the mighty ducks type of thing? Would it would it really would that capture the imagination? Because if you've got a load of, because we know they're fast drivers, you can join any online session right now, and there's someone who's world class who probably isn't even on an esports team, or maybe they're on an esports team that's never won a thing in their life. With the right environment, the right stage, let's put them up against Sebastian Job and Max Benecke, and let's put them up against Darren McCormick. Let's put them up against all of these great drivers. And even if they finish, mid-pack or whatever, well, they got a chance. That's kind of where we're going with it. We don't necessarily, we don't know what's going to happen in the future or whatever, but it would be cool to get, I guess, finally on that point, most of those type of events, there's usually a big funding from somewhere. It's like a car brand or a big company, and the event is done in their interest, commercial interest, and that's completely understandable. Companies need to make money. What we find is that can be a little bit difficult to relate to, again, for people, whereas people do relate to the drivers. So let's take, for example, James Baldwin. Great example. If James Baldwin enters an event, he has a certain attraction. People are attracted to the event for that. It would be amazing, in my opinion, if someone like James Baldwin or someone in that position has their own event where maybe they only invite all of the people that they've ever had an intense battle on track with, in a competitive environment. There might only be 10 people on track, but they are all the rivals. So like a James Baldwin Rivals Invitational. It's like, that's exciting. That's interesting. And a company is going to say, you want to have some prizes for that? I'll give you a prize, because that sounds like something that our people would watch, and they want us to be associated with it. So I think we need to flip that esports a little bit more on its head. Now, it's difficult. I mean, organizing an event like this is difficult. I have 6 people working on this, so including myself. So even though I'm spearheading it in that, I've got someone in charge of prizes. I've got stewards. I've got a head steward. I've got people just making sure that all the registrations go cleanly. I've got people on graphics. I've got loads of stuff going on. Now, they are just community members with the passion. They're not expecting to be paid for. I've got a professional broadcaster who I am paying for. I've got an esports photographer coming to the event who I'm also paying for. So there are lots of moving parts. It's not a simple thing to do, but it is totally possible. And I think that with the right, the right tuning, there is a business model there as well.
And what does a successful event look like to you? As in, let's fast forward a few weeks. Potaytona is done. The dust has settled. And you're thinking, yes, we achieved what we wanted to achieve. That was amazing. What's amazing about it? What's happened? What are you going to remember from it?
We raised an amount of money for drivers that made an impact. What's an impact? Yeah. So whether that's a set of tires that helped them to, because at grassroots, you imagine you might only have 1 or 2 sets of tires for the whole season. And if you're in the last race and you really need those, those points, if you have an extra set of tires, a brand new set that you can call on for that event, you automatically have a second a lap on your rivals at grassroots level, because that's just the reality of it. But people can't afford to have those extra things, or suspension upgrades or whatever. So we want those things. We want that competitive advantage. We want people to have those things that they wouldn't otherwise have. Now, it could be a good night's sleep, that they stay in a hotel instead of sleeping in a van. It could be little things like that give them that competitive edge. As long as it makes some bit of an impact, and the impact is up to them. I have no control over how they're going to spend it. Some of them might buy a little practice car that they can go and practice in, and that doesn't affect that they don't have to go and do training in their real car. I don't know. So anything that makes an impact. And obviously the community needs to be happy. So I want drama on track and no drama off track. So I want, we've got all the incident reports, all that can be done, and I'm inviting it because that's going to happen. I want people to fight as hard as they can and get the competitive advantage. But I want people to be, in the spirit of the event as well. And ultimately have fun. Every single person, company, everybody who's involved and has heard the word Potaytona, I want them after the event to be able to have a bit of a smirk and say, that was a bit wild, and who knows whether it'll happen again. So my goals are not financial targets. They're not viewing targets. They're not social media reach. It was never about that. I think we're going to accidentally get a lot of that stuff. And it's a great, obviously, companies need that stuff to justify their investment. But I'm not going to lose sleep at night if we only have a couple of hundred viewers for the event. That's something that's known. That's a risk that we all have. I will sleep, poorly at night if we could have done better with something. But I think that even no matter what happens, people can't say that we didn't try our best.
I love that. Now, real talk. Obviously, we're saying that you're not doing it for financial gain, you're not doing it for viewerships. But if you reflect back on your career as a streamer, this must be a milestone moment for you, right?
Totally. Yeah, it's huge. I mean, who would have thought? So I have a 9-to-5 job, and I go into the office. Nobody knows that this is happening. Nobody knows.
That's wild.
A few weeks ago, there was someone had worked super hard and they had raised like €1,300 for charity, and it was like this is an amazing thing. Nobody knows that I'm here doing this, because you have to think about this. Put this into perspective. We are raising, so we've got €35,000 worth of prizes that, as a result of how we built this event, are going to the community or extensions of the community. They're not going to random strangers. They're going to the community. So in one day, we're going to make our community, with sim racing hardware, we're going to make them €35,000 richer. Now, obviously, we're going to take some money from them as well and give it to the drivers. But we're also making these drivers, if I was to put a target on it, if someone was really to hold me to it, if we raised €20,000, I would be absolutely delighted. We're already at €5,000 and we're a week and a half out from the event. So the momentum is gathering. We haven't announced all the prizes and stuff. And it is done on the basis that when you donate, every €5 that you give gives you a chance of winning the prizes.
Oh, I didn't know that. Interesting. Yeah. Very cool.
So that's the dynamic.
Tell us about the event itself. So it's Daytona. It's 10 hours.
It's Potaytona. Yeah.
Sorry. Okay. So we're renaming the track as well as the event at this stage.
It's now known as Potaytona International Speedway. That's the here.
Please tell me how. Do you know what? I've seen that poster so many times, and I have never noticed that it was Spudway, not Speedway. You must have been incredibly proud of yourself when you came up with Spudway.
As I say, it all started as a joke.
It was a magical moment. Yeah. So 10 hours. I think there's 50 teams. 60 teams. Okay.
60 teams. 180 drivers total.
And who have you got commentating?
Me.
10 hours.
So I'm doing the full stream. So for me, it's an endurance as well. I have loads of guests popping into the stream. I have loads of prizes to give away, so I'm going to be super busy there. And the exact format is going to be released next week. Some people who come on stream will have a little bit more time. Others will have a little bit less time. We kind of want people to have fun with it. So if someone can stay a maximum of a half an hour and they decide to stay for half an hour, then great. If they have to go after half an hour and people on the stream say, no, that person needs to stay, we'll keep them on. Well, we don't, we're not tied by these massive rules. I do have some like professional guest commentators as well, so that I can go and have a little bit of a bite to eat or whatever. Someone can take over for just a little while. But I really want to, because there are 6 teams from the Potato Nation, from my community, entering. And because it's a 10-hour event, odds are every single one of them is going to be there for the 10 hours. They're going to be spotting, they're going to be watching the stream. They're putting a lot of effort into it. I wanted to show my effort and be the face of the event, because that's what ultimately people have invested in, right? Companies, people, everybody's like, well, Lawrence will lead us to, Potaytona, the finish line, if I am driving and I have a good race or bad race or whatever, it takes away from what I think the potential of the event is. If I am there, because I am like a child in a shop, in a toy shop, with the name, the real drivers, the esports drivers, the companies, the prizes, the people on the stream, we're going to make people effectively, sim racing wealthy. And just these I want to soak up all these moments. That's why I'm encouraging all the drivers, if you're not in the car, come watch the stream, hang out with the other drivers.
Oh, they
donate
will be.
Donate yourself, because all of those drivers, even though they're eligible for the driver prizes, they'll be able to donate and win a viewer prize as well. Why not? They're viewing the stream, so with all of those rules, everything is set out. It's all available in our Discord as well. So
it's incredible what you've managed to achieve. It's incredible how whipped up you've managed to get the community over another event. And I know it sounds flippant when I say it, but it's another event. There's events all the time. This is another event, but this one hits differently. This one feels different. So, I mean, genuinely, congratulations for creating something that's different, that's captured people's excitement. If people listening to the podcast want to come and watch the race or get involved with the community, where should they go?
All the info is in one place. It's on the GoFundMe page, gofundme.com/Potaytona, Potaytona. So think of Daytona,
but
it's
Potaytona.
Potaytona. So Potaytona. Here, there we go.
Potaytona. Beautiful. If you're listening on Spotify, which 95% of you are, Lawrence has just shown you a poster with the spelling for Potaytona. But you work it out. Just Google it, you'll find it. Great, Lawrence. Thank you so much for coming on the Sim Sundays podcast and sharing your joy and passion for this event. I will be abroad, but I will be watching it. I will be watching all of it as I'm wandering about. So good luck. Enjoy the stream, enjoy the commentary, and as a sim racer, thanks for putting on this event.
Thank you so much. Thanks for the support. I mean, you're always supportive of everything we've done with the channel, and it's cool to get this kind of impromptu chat going, and it's very, very timely. We want everyone to come and show up and get involved in it. Even if you show up for 5 minutes, that's all we can ask for.
See you on the International Spudway. Goodbye.